Everyone loves a good sign. We put them in our house, our garage, our office, everywhere. But I have a question for you. Which makes a better sign? A Cricut vinyl cutter or a CNC? Today, we're gonna find out. Today we're gonna make 3 different sign designs, and for each design we're gonna make one using the CNC and one using a Cricut to determine which one is better. We're gonna see which one is faster, which one is cheaper, and which one is easier. And then regardless of all that, we'll just see which one people like more. You ready? Let's go.
Round 1, fight!
First, we're gonna make these red Coca-Cola signs. I painted these 15-inch discs red, and for the Cricut, all we have to do is cut out some white vinyl and put it right in the center of the sign. I was able to upload the Coca-Cola logo into the Cricut software and make it the right size in less than 5 minutes. After that, cutting out the design took about 2 minutes, and then I was able to get it applied to the actual disc in about 5 minutes. Now that may seem like a long time, but I really wanted to make sure that it was centered. So overall, we're talking maybe 15 total minutes to put this sign together. This project was super easy, and the cost really just came down to the vinyl and the transfer tape, which when you look at the small amount that I had to use, really totaled about $1.50.
Impressive.
Next, we're gonna make the same sign using a CNC. All we're gonna do is carve out the logo using a V-bit and then fill in the carved area with white paint. Sounds simple, right? But I always find a way to screw things up that should be easy. Let's take a look. Okay, first off, it might look like I'm cheating. I'm going to stick some vinyl down on this board before I make the cut. When the CNC cuts the logo out, the remaining vinyl will allow me to throw paint down with ease, not caring about staying in the line. Once the paint is down, I'll peel off the remaining vinyl, leaving nice crisp lines. So, what did I screw up? Well, the images that you just saw were actually from my second cut. For my first cut, this is what I got. So here's what I did wrong. I was trying to showcase the difference between the CNC and the Cricut. I used a V-bit to cut out the logo because V-bits are great for lettering. However, when I ran the simulation, I accidentally selected the wrong V-bit. I chose a 90-degree half-inch bit, when in reality I was using a 90-degree quarter-inch bit. And that's how I ended up with a hot piece of flaming garbage.
Hey! 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 You idiot!
Start over.
Sir!
After that cut, I decided to play it safe. Instead of using a V-bit and potentially ending up with, again, hot piece of flaming garbage, I decided to use a 1/16 inch bit and just do a pocket cut for the entire thing. Now, we're not done trying the V-bit. On the third sign, I'll break it out again. The cut took about 25 minutes, which is way longer than it took on the Cricut. However, I really didn't want to screw up a second time, and so I ran the machine slower than I probably needed to. Painting the logo didn't take long, but you put down a coat, have to wait for it to dry, put down another coat, and that's really what took so long. Also, the Auramask vinyl that I used did for the most part leave really good crisp lines. There were a couple areas though where it pulled up and did not, and I had to do some touch-up work. Not bad, but it did add a little bit to the process. As far as the ease of the project, if you don't make boneheaded mistakes like I did, it's also super simple. The cost of the CNC version of the Coca-Cola sign was about $2, and I'm looking at that as being the cost of paint, which was very minimal, as well as the piece of Auramask vinyl that I put on top. So, on to round 2.
Round 2, fight!
Before you judge me for better or worse for using Auburn for these signs, you should know that originally I was planning on making signs of the Houston Texans.
Boo!
Shut up, son! The Texans are not my team, but I have some friends that do like the Texans, so I had somebody to gift these to afterwards. The problem is, the day before I was gonna make these signs, the Texans lost to the Chiefs. At that point, everybody was changing their logo from this to this online. So I decided we should probably just step away from the Texans for a bit, but I had these discs that were already painted blue. Auburn is doing really well in basketball right now. I've got some friends who went to Auburn, really like Auburn, so I thought, hey, let's just go ahead and make some signs for Auburn. Again, I have people that I can gift these to.
That's not any better, Dad.
Hey, that lawn's not gonna mow itself. All right, on to the sign making. Cutting out the vinyl took little time at all, about 90 seconds total. I made one cut on orange vinyl and I made one cut on white vinyl. What really took the most amount of time was nesting them inside of each other so I could transfer it to the sign. Now I already know what I would do differently, because see, when I nested these together, you can see on the final product where I'm just the teeniest bit off, maybe 1/100th of a millimeter. However, you can still see. So what I would do differently next time is instead of nesting one inside the other, I would make a solid filled white decal and then put the orange on top of it. I just love making mistakes over and over and over again. As far as the ease of the sign, it really was easy. Cutting it out, not a problem. Nesting it, a little bit more of a problem, but I told you what I would do differently to really fix that. If I'm on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being not difficult, 5 being difficult, maybe 2 to 2.5 stars on this one. The cost on this one really comes down to the 2 different colors of vinyl. For the amount that I used, we're looking at about $3. Cutting this same sign on the CNC was quite a bit easier. I cut the inner part of the letters to 1 millimeter depth, and then the outline I cut to 2 millimeters of depth. I painted the entire thing white, and then after that dried, I used a foam brush to apply the orange paint. I had to be careful not to get the orange into the white, so it did take a little bit longer trying to be careful, but it really wasn't bad. Like with the Coca-Cola sign, the dry time for the paint really made this take longer than it actually seems. The actual painting time did not take very long. The dry time makes this take quite a bit longer. I'll rate the ease of this project at 2 out of 5, and the cost of the project wasn't much. I had 2 different types of paint. Again, using that Aura mask on the outside, we're looking at about $3. And that takes us to our final round.
Final round. Fight!
For the last sign, I didn't want to use any trademarked logos. So instead, I used 3 different elements, combined them together to make a St. Patrick's Day sign in honor of my Irish heritage. We're going to use 3 different colors, which adds some complexity for the Cricut, but also for painting after I carve it with the CNC. Using the Cricut, I carved out the word Ireland from orange vinyl, the shamrock from white vinyl, and the Celtic knot circle from gold vinyl. Now this is where we hit a really big limitation for the Cricut. The signs that I'm making are all 15 inches in diameter, and my Cricut maxes out at 12 inches wide. So I was not going to be able to go to the edge as I had hoped. Regardless, I kept everything to scale and made it work. Aside from not getting closer to the edge, there is one other thing I do not like about this design. I centered the 3 elements, but I'm not a fan of where the word Ireland is in relation to the shamrock. I feel like it needs to be just a little bit lower. For now, I've decided to leave it centered. That's the bonus of using a removable vinyl. If it truly keeps bothering me, I can adjust its position with relative ease. That being said, we're going to talk about a negative aspect of removable vinyl at the end of this video. So the cut time for Ireland was about 40 seconds. The cut time for the shamrock was about the same, and the Celtic circle took quite a bit longer, maybe 10 minutes. As far as difficulty goes, I needed to make sure that I had all the different cuts centered on each other, and that's not too bad. The most difficult part really was weeding out all the extra gold vinyl after cutting out the Celtic circle. I had to make sure that none of those small pieces got removed when I was peeling everything else off. It was a little tricky as I was transferring all 3 pieces at the same time, so I'll give this 3 out of 5 on the difficulty rating. For the CNC, I used 2 different bits for this design. For the Celtic knot circle and for the shamrock, I used a 1/16 inch bit. For the lettering of Ireland, we went back and used a V bit again. The shamrock and Celtic circle were carved in about an hour, and Ireland was cut in just 4 minutes. I was able to paint the shamrock white and Ireland orange all at the same time, but I needed to cover those 2 sections so that I could use the gold glitter spray from Krylon. I was able to get by with 1 thick coat of spray. This sign was relatively easy to do, even if the carving did take a good amount of time. I'll rate this difficulty level at 3. As far as the cost, we're looking at about $7, and the majority of that comes from the Krylon glitter spray that I used. You could use some other paint and it would drop that cost quite a bit. Okay, with all that being said, when it comes down to it, what we're looking at is speed, ease, and cost. And that probably means more to me as the maker than it does to the person buying it. If you like it, you're going to buy it. Now, if you're going to sell signs, please don't sell trademark logos unless you have permission to do so. So again, if you're looking at selling a sign, what's most important is what the person wants. I posted side-by-side pictures online of the CNC and the Cricut version of the sign so that I could get feedback from people. I would say it was a resounding, we prefer the CNC over the Cricut made signs. Now for me, a couple days after I made all these signs, there's something that came about that made it to where the CNC is a clear winner, and it's this. I used removable vinyl for all of my signs. Within a day or 2, some of that vinyl started to bubble up. I think if I use permanent vinyl, I might be able to get away with it and not have it bubble up, but since I didn't, CNC is the clear winner in this case.
Excellent.
But do you make signs? Do you use a Cricut? Do you use a CNC? Do you use both? In the comment section below, let us know what you do and what works for you. Until next time, go get lost in the garage.
Outstanding.